Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees. Glory to Srila Prabhupada. This morning, I'm going to attempt to resume our readings from Brihad Bhagavatamrita, chapter 1 of volume 1. Chapter 2 of volume 1. Sometimes it's a little difficult for me to resume where I left off because I'm also daily reading from other sections of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, not only alone, but with other devotees. So I'm in different places. I'll just give you an example. The day before yesterday, I was jumping ahead and reading from chapter 7, volume 2 of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And we were discussing the verse. I'll just read the verse. And it was after Gopakumara finished his whole story to the Mathura Brahmin. And naturally, they were sitting in Mathura because Gopakumara was sent by Srimati Radharani from Goloka to go and to speak to the Mathura Brahmin. And he was Sarup, which was his eternal identity in Goloka. He's a Ragatmaka Bhakta. Ragatmaka Bhakta is the devotee situated in his eternal service in Goloka, rendering spontaneous devotional service and ecstatic love. And oftentimes they are a personality that one meditates on, the type of service he performs to the Lord. And he's specifically speaking to the Mathura Brahmin and after telling his whole story of his journey from beginning from very first place where he received the mercy of his spiritual master in Govardhan, culminating in the way that he achieved perfection by ecstatic love and by his sadhana that he had performed of chanting the mantra, which was given by his spiritual master. And this story that he's telling, of course, was his personal account of what he experienced prior to his achieving perfection. And after he finishes his whole story to the Mathura Brahmin, he's observing the qualities and characteristics of the Mathura Brahmin. And if the Mathura Brahmin is ripe to experience the type of ecstasies which are only accessible to those who have this spontaneous ecstatic love. So he's saying to this Mathura Brahmin this one verse, and this is the verse I was discussing the day before yesterday online while we were reading. And he's saying the special ecstasies one relishes in the shelter of the personality of Godhead's lotus feet are private. In other words, private, which means they should not be shared. One should feel shy to reveal them, even to one's own mind. And sometimes I entered special states of consciousness. In other words, he's saying to the Mathura Brahmin, sometimes my consciousness went to a certain place which was so special while I was speaking to you, and which I could no longer recognize myself or others. In other words, he's saying, I didn't know who I was, and I couldn't recognize others. In other words, he's describing his own ecstasies that he was experiencing while speaking, because he was telling the Mathura Brahmin in the course of his conversation with him many times that you can only know these things when you experience them yourself. I can't simply give it to you in words only, but you have to experience it. So he's describing how he's experiencing these special ecstasies while speaking to him. And therefore, not only could I not recognize myself or others, but I couldn't even distinguish one thing from the next. And so there were events that I didn't see. In other words, he's describing, it's just like many times he described how he would fall unconscious and he lost his whole ability to compose himself and understand where he was. He was describing this to the Mathura Brahmin. And he's speaking this verse, which I haven't completed yet. And he's trying to determine within the Mathura Brahmin if he's experiencing. Because only if he experiences it can he fully understand. So the rest of the verse states, yet Krishna in your presence has entered my heart and brought all these topics out, forcing them to come from my mouth. In other words, Sarupa is saying to this Mathura Brahmin that Krishna is speaking to you and he's in your presence. I was experiencing these ecstasies, but I could understand that the only way I was able to continue was because Krishna was speaking. And he was forcing these words to come from his mouth. So then he continued observing the Mathura Brahmin. And then he began to explain how he had come there to speak to him. Because Radharani personally requested him to go. And he didn't want to leave Krishna's daily pastimes. So on Radharani's order, he went to speak to the Mathura Brahmin and then wanted to go back in time so that when Krishna was coming back from the pasturing grounds, he would be there to receive him, because he didn't spend the day in the pasturing grounds with him while he was with the Mathura Brahmin. And then he sees that the Mathura Brahmin has not fully experienced all this yet. And he places his hand on the head and fully blesses the Mathura Brahmin, who begins calling out, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And he begins speaking to everyone. Have you seen Krishna? Have you seen Krishna? And he begins looking everywhere for Krishna. He cannot find him. And while he's looking for Krishna, he falls into a karika bush, a tree with thorns. And he loses consciousness. And the next thing he knows, he awakens in Goloka Vrindavan. And there he is with Sarupa. And off in the distance, he looks and he sees the clouds of dust coming. And as the clouds of dust are coming, gradually he begins to see his worshipful Lord. And then he sees gradually his form. He's holding a flute, and he sees all the beauty manifesting before his eyes. And Madan Gopal, he comes forward and he sees, oh, there's my friend Jana Shama. And he falls in ecstasy and loses consciousness. Anyways, there's so much more that we were discussing from this verse of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And we were jumping to this verse just to bring us to the understanding of the value of everything else we were reading. because everything we were reading specifically about that time, a couple of days ago, we were specifically reading about the opulences of Vaikuntha. And we're describing all the various types of opulences that exist in Vaikuntha, and which are all result of Mahalakshmi's influence. And I think, as we were also discussing last week, that I was reviewing a little bit about some of the things we're reading about Mahalakshmi, and how Sanatana Goswami had explained that all these opulences that what are manifested by the influence of Mahalakshmi and Vaikuntha, varieties of opulences, excuse me, and all the varieties of ecstasies, all the varieties of different devotees, and all the different varieties of forms that the Lord assumes in Vaikuntha are all due to the influence of Mahalakshmi's presence there. And Sanatana Goswami revealed in one commentary, he revealed that Sanatana Goswami is bringing out all of these opulence to help us appreciate the superiority of the opulences of Goloka, which are all manifestations of the influence of Srimati Radharani, from whom Mahalakshmi is coming, because she is the source. And she's the source of all the different varieties of ecstatic love also in Goloka and Gokul. And she requested Sarupa to go speak to this Mathura Brahmin and to enlighten him, because he is chanting the mantra of Kamaksha, my expansion. And go and bring him and enlighten him with your mercy, so he can experience the same type of ecstasy which you're experiencing here in Goloka. And Sarupa is actually explaining all of this to the Mathura Brahmin before he fully gives his blessings and enlightens him. Anyways, I'm not going to continue, because we'll also get there in due course of time. But I'm bringing out a similar understanding with Narada Muni and his quest for finding the greatest recipient of Krishna's mercy. Because he knows, he's conscious of, as we spoke about before, he knows who the greatest recipient of Krishna's mercy are. But he wants to instruct the world. In other words, he has purposes for his quest for finding the greatest recipient of Krishna's mercy. In fact, in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the word loka siksha is used to instruct the world. He wants to publicly proclaim and reveal the hierarchy of devotional servants and why all these different devotees exist. Just like yesterday, we were discussing that both Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and Srila Prabhupada elsewhere in his commentaries of Chaitanya Charitamrita, he specifically states that one should read Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and from reading it, one will gain the understanding of Krishna, devotional service, and his devotees. Not just Prabhupada, but Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami also states it elsewhere in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So these are the varieties of devotees, the varieties of devotional service, and all of them in relationship to the Lord. They're all revealed in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So Narada Muni, by going to these devotees, he's revealing something of value in each of them, because they all have devotion. Not only do they all have devotion, but they all have humility. Just like previously we had talked about how there's two types of humility. We spoke a lot about that point. We spoke about how ordinary dainya can be developed by human efforts. But there's also a type of danya, which is completely beyond the mundane. That comes from receiving the Supreme Lord's favor. So also, Narada Muni was trying to bring out the qualities of humility that were manifest in each of these devotees. And because each devotee would always point to somebody who was superior to him, because they recognized within themselves that the qualities that were being described of them did not truly exist, because of the various activities they had performed previously. And in some cases, they had offended either the Lord or the Lord's devotee. And we gave reference to how all of those different events that these devotees are speaking about themselves were actually pastimes which were described in detail in Srimad Bhagavatam. So Narada Muni is bringing out this quality in all of these devotees that he visits. And not only is he instructing the world in this way, but he's also doing it to magnify the glories of Vrindavan. Because by systematically moving in this way through all of these devotees, going into higher and higher and higher positions of devotion, going even beyond the hierarchy that exists in Vaikuntha, because that was one of the questions specifically that Uttara had asked Parikshit Maharaj. This is another very, very important point to bring out. But of course, this is in the second volume of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Forgive me for skipping around, but I'm doing this to put things into perspective. Why are we even reading about all of this? Why don't we just go straight to Goloka? How did the Mathura Brahmin go straight to Goloka? He heard Sarup's story from about Gopakumara, and he got the blessings of Sarupa from everything he had heard from him. And the Mathura Brahmin, he went directly to Goloka. Of course, from Mathura, Bama Vrindavan. So Mother Uttara, she had asked Uttara, Parikshit Maharaj's mother had asked Parikshit Maharaj. She was specifically speaking about the residents of the spiritual world, and Vaikuntha, specifically Vaikuntha, that they have all attained the ultimate limit of happiness, each in his own kind of ecstatic reciprocation with the Lord. But what place is destined for the exceptional devotees of the performer of the rasa dance? There must be a special place. This performer of the rasa dance, they chant his names, and they're full of unique love for him, indifferent to everything else. They want only to become servants of Sri Radha. If those special devotees attain only the same perfection as others, my heart will be left discontent. Again, she's asking about special devotees. As Sarupa had spoken about, these special types of ecstasies, the special types of devotion. The word special is used in many places to specifically reference something which is even beyond Vaikuntha and beyond all the different opulences of the material and spiritual worlds. So she says, for such devotees as Nanda and Yasoda to reach only the same destination, to me, the very thought is intolerable. And she comes to this next verse, which is the verse that I gave to you, Sankashanatai, which is 2:1 to 23. Dritsa 3. No,
360.
what? What? No. 2, 1,
No?
20. What's it to you? Okay. Varied and countless excellences flow into those devotees like rivers into the ocean. And in the commentary, it is stated, all varieties of perfection are fully manifest in the devotees of Gokul. Those devotees are perfectly beautiful, charming, and graceful, and they are endowed with the valuable assets of religious duty, economic development, sense gratification, renunciation, knowledge, realization, devotion, and pure love of God. What to speak of dainya, humility? That's me. That's not there in the commentary. That's me saying that. That's my commentary. All these perfections are present within them to the utmost degree possible for finite living beings. Whenever Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita depicts the glories of devotees lesser than the residents of Gokula, its purpose is to highlight the greater glories of the Gokula Vasis and demonstrate that all varieties of excellence flow ultimately into the residents of Gokula, just as the waters of all rivers flow at last into the ocean. So this is the purpose for hearing about these things. We should not forget our objective. Why are we hearing about Brahma? Why are we hearing about Indra? Why are we hearing about all these other devotees that Narada is visiting? It's because of all the qualities that they have, all the opulence they have, whatever devotion they may have, is always all fully manifest to the utmost, the topmost degree in these devotees of
Brilliant.
Raj. But to hear about them is not for those who are not ready yet to hear about them. Then all these other varieties of devotion are being shown in relation to the residents of Braj. We should not forget that they're being shown in relationship to glorify the residents of Braj and their superiority because of the intimacy they have in their relationship with Krishna, which are so intimate that they not only do they forget that Krishna is God, that remembrance of God exists in everyone else below them. That remembrance of his position, his majesty, his superiority, his opulences. Everyone below them is conscious of them. But the residents of Raj are so superior that they're not conscious of that. And they control Krishna completely by their love. So much so that not only do they forget that Krishna is God, but Krishna, in their presence, forgets that he's God. Who can control Krishna like that? There must be a special place. And that's what Uttara is begging Parikshit Maharaj. Please tell me, what's that special place? It's intolerable for me to accept that they go to some place where everybody's conscious of God. Please reveal that special place with those special ecstasies, with a special love, with a special intimacy. And for all of those who are conscious of themselves being servants of Sri Radha, who is the mother of devotion, from whom all these special ecstasies come. All the special ecstasies of Vaikuntha, they come from Mahalakshmi. But all the special ecstasies of Raj, they come from Radharani. She's the mother of devotion. And she is the mother of all these, the source of all these forms of love for Krishna. And nobody can control Krishna like she does. all of these are revealed. All of this is revealed in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. All of this is revealed in Srimad Bhagavatam. And we should ultimately know the objective of everything we hear from Narada Muni, from Parikshit Maharaj, from Srila Sanatana Goswami, to give us the opportunity to rise beyond all of this, beyond everything in this world, by hearing the glories of those special devotees who attract Krishna with their love. So one might say, what makes them so special? Well, that's why we're going through this journey. It's to help us understand why they're so special. And that's why Narada is going from devotee to devotee. Gopakumar is going from one abode to the next, ultimately to bring us to the conclusion. There is no more greater love, there is no more special love than that love which is possessed by the residents of Braj. So, I still didn't get to Lord Brahma today. But indirectly, I tried to bring us to Lord Brahma and why we will continue where we left off in Volume 1, Chapter 2, when Narada Muni hears from Indra all the glories of Brahma. He raises to Lord Brahma to go and to see Lord Brahma. He sees what is taking place before his eyes and waits before offering his prostrated obeisances to his father, and then hears his father deny the glories that Indra spoke about him. And while denying the glories that Indra has spoken about him, he will be revealing different sections of Srimad Bhagavatam, such as creation, which is in the second canto, just as sub-creation, which is in the third canto, such as annihilation, which takes place at the end of his day when he goes to sleep, and while he is sleeping, there is a partial annihilation of the universe as he sleeps next to Mahapurusha. And all these things will be revealed by the words of Lord Brahma, while at the same time he's denying that his glories, which were spoken by Indra. And those verses will be read the next time we have a class. I hope somehow that this class puts things a little bit more into perspective. So maybe even before we have our next class, you can listen to this class again, so I don't have to repeat it and try to put it into perspective again. But please remember, whenever Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita depicts the glories of the devotees lesser than the residents of Gokula, its purpose is to highlight the greater glories of the Gokula Vasis and demonstrate that all varieties of excellence flow ultimately into the residents of Gokula, just as the waters of all rivers flow at last into the ocean. Just remember that. Just as all rivers flow at last into the ocean. It's a visual you can keep in your mind, something you can relate to in this world. Whenever you go take bath in a river, ultimately that river enters into the ocean. In the same way, all the excellences flow into the residents of Gokula, which means that whatever excellence you see, which appear to be great, all become less or almost insignificant in comparisons to the excellence of the residents of Gokul. Okay, so let's chant for some time. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.